It's Super Bowl Sunday. Today we're preaching about fighting fair specifically for all the men who don't have anything planned tomorrow. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on today. I hope y'all feel the spirit in the room, though. It makes my job so much easier to preach this word because he's already touching your heart. So I'm hoping that what we're saying today, what I'm sharing today, will be helpful for you. Pastor Jared gets to have a front row seat in my marriage. So he gets to see whenever I'm broken, whenever I go to him and I was like, oh man, I don't even know like what's going on. He's trying to coach me through all of that. And after knowing all the ups and downs, he still trusts me to share it with you guys. So blame it on him, all right? Now, thank you, man. But whenever I think about my marriage, I just know that I got to thank God each time. Because those of you who know a little bit about my marriage, it should not exist today. It should have been over years ago. And not only that it has held together, but it has thrived to the point where I get to help other marriages. I get to share. I've been married to my wife 12 years now. 12 years. 6 years dating before that, so 18 years total. That's a lot of experience fighting. I'm not reading just books, I'm reading my past to share it with you guys today, all right? 18 years of fighting, we going at it today. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old right now, so the fights in the last few years has elevated just a little bit. For those of you who have young kids, I hope y'all feel me right there. But let me brag on my boys real quick. My 4-year-old is named Canaan, and I truly think he's as bright as the sun. This kid, he just, boom, like he's just all up in there. I go and pick him up at school. The first, he's doing daycare right now for the first time, starting at the beginning of the year. And he was a little nervous. This is the first time he's doing it. Man, 3 weeks in now, and he's like, every time I pick him up, bye, Skylar, bye. Like this boy, he just loves being around people. I don't know where he gets that from, seriously. My 2-year-old, Judah, he knows how to make you feel loved. Like he is your physical touch guy. He is like the guy that we have this sofa. You know, we have a whole sectional, but he chooses to sit on you, you know? Like, seriously, just yesterday I was like, your seat is here. He was like, no, Papa. Like, he's 2 years old. He knows how to make me feel loved, and I appreciate that sometimes, though. I was like, no, your seat is there. So after 20 years of fighting, close to 20 years of fighting, we're doing it a little better today. Okay. Now, we're nowhere near perfect, and really, like I said, man, after some of the early years, we should not be together. But everybody say, but God. I'm telling y'all, but God. When you let God step in the middle of your marriage, no matter the condition, no matter how crazy it is. Anybody who's known Lisa and I before, they're like, God gotta be real, because they made it. Real talk. Yeah, it was wild. Like, you think I'm trying to exaggerate to make the word better? No, it was rough. Today we're gonna be in the book of Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. And just to give you a little bit of context, right before this, he was talking to a group of diverse people. So when you know about diversity, as celebrated as it is, there's a lot of differences and conflict. And just like in marriage, you put two people together and it blows up. But he says, under Christ, now there is no Jew or Gentile. Now there is no slave or free. We are the same under God, the same way in a marriage it should look like. So here in Colossians 3:12, it says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. It's a little hot. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. God, we know it's not about the stories today. It's not about the sermon illustrations, God. It's about you desiring our marriages and relationships to be thriving and healthy under your name, God, today. Just speak through me and hope, God, just break down any walls right now. In Jesus' name, we pray. And the church says, all right, take your seats. Tell them, let's get ready to throw down. I was going to say the other 5 words, but I heard it's patented, so they might flag our YouTube video. All right, last week, anybody here heard Pastor Jared's message last week? Yo. See, if you weren't here, you heard that cheer. Make sure y'all go back to watch it because it was an incredible message, all right? But in the middle of that message, he got to talk about his days in schools, you know, the days that he got his Mac on. You know what I'm saying? Like, he got to talk about that, so I figured, hey, I'm gonna share a little bit about my time in high school, if that's okay with y'all. Okay, so in high school, right? In high school, I was about this height. My senior year, I was 5'10", a little bit lighter, about 75 pounds lighter. Wow. I was 5'10", $122 on a good day, you know, soaking wet. That was tall, drink of water for an Asian guy. Come on, somebody, come on. But I didn't do much macking. I did more math and science again. So I figure as much as y'all interested in girls, y'all interested in science too, right? Okay, so I don't know why I started with this, but all right. I'm gonna help you out a little bit about science today because I think it's gonna draw up everything for our message today. Because if we're gonna be learning about fighting fair, we gotta know why we fight in the first place. We gotta know why we do that in the first place. So everybody say amygdala. As weird as that sounds, you have heard of this before. Okay, the amygdala is your emergency center in your brain. It is this piece in the brain that controls all of the dangers. And when you feel threatened and frightened, this is the part of your brain that initiates the fight or flight or freeze response. Now you're recalling, oh, that's the thing. That's the amygdala. I knew that. Okay, whenever I heard this, I'd never really gotten a chance to appreciate it if you didn't know about the 3 other parts of the brain that I'm gonna share it with you. I'm gonna go real fast. I know, this is not science class, I promise you, okay? But everybody say hippocampus. Okay, hippocampus controls your recent memories. So your drive-in today, your fight yesterday, all of the craziness you did the week before. Okay, all of that lives in the hippocampus, okay? Everybody say thalamus. This translates your senses. The things you see, touch, smell, hear, this is the thing. All of this, you're gathering information. So the prefrontal cortex, you don't have to say that one, a lot of syllables. Okay, prefrontal cortex digest all of it to help you make decisions. Any internal processors in there? Any internal processor? You need a minute? Yep. You know, it's like, that was a lot of information there. Just give me a minute. And you start thinking, you're tapping into the prefrontal cortex. And if forced to make a decision on the spot, that would stress you out like crazy. Because you needed time to process that, you know? The internal processors, that's what it does. The amygdala, what it does is when you feel threatened, when there is danger, it hijacks your brain. It doesn't trust that you can make a decision fast enough. Because you're taking too long to do that. The amygdala say, I got your back. I got your back. And it hijacks your brain in a split second. It makes all different types of decisions for you. And so your heart starts beating faster. You start breathing in. You need more oxygen into your muscles because they start tensing up. You know, your skin starts to perspire because you're about to go, you about to throw hands, you know? Do people say throw hands all the time? I feel kind of tough when I say that, so that's why I do it. But super helpful when you need a fight. It's really super helpful. All of those things, all of those trigger responses, that is your fight response. But sometimes your mind goes blank. And you can't think of anything to say. You're so frightened that you're just stuck. That's super helpful if you need to be quiet because a predator is around. So all of these things that the amygdala does, it chooses those things for your survival. Thank you, amygdala. Nowadays, there's less of that you need, but here's the thing. The brain, the amygdala, doesn't know the difference between a rattlesnake and the buttons your spouse pushes on your fear. So when your spouse pushes at the fears that you have inside, the brain doesn't know the difference. And so the same way that in a split second you start making decisions, start screaming at the top of your lungs or start running out to get out of here, like all of those decisions is because the amygdala. Blame the amygdala. Blame them. It wasn't me, baby. It was the amygdala. So, if we know that's the case, it doesn't matter how many marriage tips or how many fighting tips that we have, if we can't control the mental space, if we can't recognize when that is going off an alarm, it can't help us. Navy SEALs and professional boxers, they do mental exercises because they're often put into the middle of dangerous situations. So they do all different types of exercises to regain their composure. They're not gonna let the brain choose what to do. Boxers, when you look at boxing coaches and they're training somebody and they look at their breathing, they could tell if they're panicking. And that's what tends to happen when we're in the middle of a fight. Just kind of like me right now, I've been moving a lot. That worship was on fire. Woo. But in relationships and in marriages, conflict is unavoidable. And whenever we feel threatened, it is that fight, flight, or freeze. And we all have different triggers. We're all built differently. We've all experienced different types of trauma and experiences in our life. And so we have different triggers. And so when provoked, sometimes that happens. Anybody been in a fight that I just need to get out of the house. Just get in the car and I just need to drive somewhere. Where you going? I don't know. I just need to drive. That's your flight. That's your flight response in the middle of an argument when fears are triggering, you're being threatened, that's your flight response. Has anybody ever just kind of clammed up in the middle of a fight? You just stonewall, give them the silent treatment, just can't think of anything to say. That's your freeze response. In the middle of that fight, your amygdala triggers and then you just shut down in the middle of that. And then sometimes we fight. Marriage couples, y'all know? Sometimes we fight. And what happens when we fight is we need weapons. So the first thing I do in the middle of a fight, I start going to my war chest of things. Depending on what you poked at, I'm gonna think about the weapons that I'm gonna choose. Maybe you're poking at my shame. You see, even if you didn't intentionally do it, even if you're saying things like, I know I messed up before. You didn't even intentionally bring it up, but it triggered that. I know I messed up. I know I lost money in that business before. I know I failed before. I know I failed over and over again before, but you don't have to keep on pressing at me for it. You champion me. Give me some grace. I'm beating myself up for it. And right next to shame is insecurities. That you didn't even mean to do it. But all of a sudden you say, wait, did you just say I'm not good enough? Right. Because I was just thinking that. Wow. I was just thinking I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not fit enough. And the moment it gets triggered, I put my defenses up. Wow. I start backing up. We start getting disconnected. You take jabs at me, I take jabs at you. Right. Pretty good form, right? 2 months of kickboxing when I was 17 years old. Let's go, somebody. You gotta step into that jab, you know what I'm saying? So whether it's shame and insecurity, sometimes your weapon is past hurts. This is the weapon. Whether it wasn't even from you, but most of the time it's you. Because it's that time you did that and the time before that, it was that same thing. And I know, I said I forgive you. But I knew you were gonna do it again, so I put it away in my war chest just for a moment like this. Wow. You're doing it again. You always make me feel small. Right. You always disrespect me. Right. You never care about anything that I care about, so I have this ready. Every time that happens again, I pick it up, ready to fight again. But more than shame, insecurities, and past hurts, when you go at my fear, I take out my gap. You poke at my fear, you better get blasted. No, these fears are real. You poke at my fear, we're gonna go at it. And we're gonna go at it hard. When you poke at my fear, it's like you're cornering me. As much as I don't wanna fight, I gotta pull out my weapon. And so whether it's the fear of abandonment, because people have left me before, and right now you're making me feel that way, we're gonna fight. And maybe it's the fear of being controlled, because all my life is controlled, and I don't need you to control me right now. And so we're gonna fight. Maybe it's the feeling of disconnection. And just, I can never connect with you. We're supposed to be married. We're supposed to be one flesh. And it's this fear of being lonely, and we're gonna fight. Right. Or men, it's fear of being disrespected. Right. Yep. Being a man is all I know how to do, and when you said that, when you did that, I felt about this big. And so we're gonna fight. Right. And so these are the emotions that we have. These are the weapons that we put away in those moments. When the big amygdala triggers, we're gonna go right into that, because no one wants to be caught off guard, defenseless. No one want to be in a position where they don't have anything to protect themselves with. But if we can be honest, we can agree that each time we go into our war chest, each time we use these weapons, nobody wins. Not one person wins. But the thing about conflict is, although it's unavoidable, sometimes it's necessary, and if done right, it can create better unions. It can create better understanding of one another. And so learning how to do it right is essential for our relationships, for our marriages. So just like experienced boxers, like anybody who don't fight on a regular basis, never approach a boxer, okay? Yeah. I don't care. Mayweather's about this big. He will lay me down, all right? Because he's experienced. He knows how to stay composed. He's not going to get panicked. The moment I put my hands up, I'm like, it's not like I'm scared. It's just the adrenaline is going so much, and I'm panicking. And like, I'm probably scared too. But just like marriages, over time, you ask the couples that have been married 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and they will tell you, I've never heard a marriage said, our marriage is perfect. They're gonna be the first one to say, it ain't perfect. It ain't perfect, but I will tell you, there is a stability. There's a stableness in that marriage that newer relationships, newer couples, they yearn for that relationship because everything's always skating on the rocks. And so, just like that, over time, you start learning how to do this better. But there's this guy that I talk about pretty often, John Maxwell. By this time, I might as well call him my hero, because literally, I bring him up all the time. Recently in a podcast, I heard him recant an idea he had earlier on. He said, he used to say experience was the mother of all learning. So in the same way, you get married for a few years and a few decades, and it's the mother of our learning. But he recanted that, and he said, man, I've seen people married 40 years still fight like they've been married 4 days. Wow. Okay. And so it's not the experience, but it's the reflection on that experience. It's the intentionality to take that experience and desire for a better connection, an intentional step of learning more about each other. That's how we're gonna grow. So if we're gonna learn how to fight fair, we're gonna be intentional about learning how to settle our emotions. We gotta have some ground rules. And rule number 1 is fight the present, not the person.
That's so good.
Fight the what, not the who. In Matthew 18:15, it says, if another believer sins against you, go privately and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses, you have won that person back. It says, point out the offense. Don't attack the person. Right. Point out what they did. Don't start saying you are. Wow. This is what you did. Yeah. So I didn't get the green light from Lisa, but she heard the illustration earlier today. I might get chewed out later tonight, so I'm gonna just share it with y'all, okay? This is my typical fight. Like Lisa and I, this is our typical fight. Just a few days ago or 10 years ago, this is that one, you know? It's the one, it's that thorn, you know what I'm saying? And so in order to understand this, you gotta know a little bit of context about Lisa, right? So Lisa is one of the most neatest people I've ever met. Like neat. She's so neat, you know? And she's an activator, so she never let grass grow under her feet, you know? She's like, boom, something needs to happen. And so the benefit of being married to Lisa is that the house, every time I walk in, it's like I'm walking into a model home, you know? Everything is always spotless. Now, I'm telling you, she's in the middle of a show and something might have dropped on the island and she just, you know, she don't wait. She just cleans it up and she's on it. And I love that. I've grown. That's not my natural place, I'm just saying. I mean, like, I was the 7th child, a whole bunch of older siblings that kind of took care of everything, you know. Trent's number 10, so she's even worse, I'm just saying. It's not my natural instinct. You know, it's just not my natural thing that I do. Now, I've learned to appreciate this. Like when I'm over at a house that is just not kind of put together, I feel like it's not as peaceful. And so I was like, man, when did this happen? You know, that's how God changes you, by the way. You know, before you turn around, you're like, wow, when did that happen? Anyway, going back. So every now and again, back in the day, we have ground rules now about like dishes left out. We have ground rules now. I used to leave a dish every single time I finished. I'd leave it in the sink, you know. At least I didn't leave it on the counter, y'all. I mean, put it in the sink. But we put ground rules. We run the dishwasher every single night, so instead of putting it in the sink, put it in the dishwasher. It's pretty straightforward. And so over time, I've learned how to do that pretty well. Instead of every day, now maybe I would forget like once every 2 weeks, once every 5 days, something like that, you know? Something along those lines I would slip. And most of the time, Lisa would just go, okay, he forgot again. He's gonna put it away. Okay, he forgot again. But sometimes she walks by the sink and she sees me playing with the boys over here or looking at my phone and something just doesn't sit right, you know? Babe! I'm telling you, Kanan does an amazing impression of her. Like, I'm telling you, you ask Kanan who is Babe, and he was like, that's Daddy. Babe! What's going on? What's going on here? Oh, what is that? You left your plate in the sink. It's like, oh, snap. Did I do that? I know I did, but. Leave it alone. I'll take care of it in a minute. It's too late now. I already did it. And from this dish, all of a sudden, man, you're such a slob. From this item here, all of a sudden it's directed towards me as a person. I turn around, why do you talk to me like that? Man, I'm a good man. I'm a good husband. I don't deserve to be spoken to like that. It's like, well, if you're a good man, you would have put the dish away. So now, not only am I a slob, I'm not a good man, my character is attacked, and all of these things, now I feel smaller and smaller, and then I go into my chest, and that's when we go into this match. From this whole idea of this dish, now we forgot what we started fighting about. You guys ever ran into that? It's like, why are we fighting again? We forgot because what started with the dish, now we're attacking each other's character. Where it's like, you always, you never, and you're just, and your mama. That's that one time you brought her up, see? That one time I still remember. You just get triggered, and then now all of a sudden you're in this fight that doesn't even mean it was a dish. And so you gotta focus on the what, not the person. If it was addressing, hey, you said that you would put this away. It's like, no, leave it there, I'll do it in a second. Can you please just do it now? Because it's causing me a little bit of anxiety. Now, y'all, it's real anxiety. Like some of you guys, like, it's just a minute. No, it's real anxiety for them. You know, so you gotta understand that both sides do that. Fight the present, not the person. Because when you fight the person, it gets nasty. You get nasty. And this is not how we're called to act. In fact, it's really not who you are at all. Because if you get a chance to step back and look at yourself, the worst thing that could ever happen if somebody showed you a video of you fighting. You're like, that's nasty. Who is that? Because Colossians 3:12 tells us, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Clothe yourself with this. Paul uses that term because it requires intentionality. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you don't accidentally clothe yourself. Now, some of y'all look like, but most of y'all look good. Most of y'all look in the mirror and y'all like, I think I'm gonna put that on today. That's gonna look cute on me today. You know, the fellas be thinking that all the time. Compassion will look good on me today. Patience will look good on me today. Gentleness will look good on me today. It don't accidentally, that outfits don't accidentally happen. You want this? It says clothe yourself with it. Jump in on that. But not only, if we want to learn how to fight fair and really get our marriages in the upward trajectory, not only do we have to stay focused on the what, we should always fight with the end in mind. Okay, fight with the end in mind. We know it's unavoidable. I know the pastors told me to fight. No, fight with the end in mind, all right? The solution in mind, as opposed to the end of the relationship in mind. There's a big difference. Okay, in Genesis 2:24 it says, that is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and the two become one flesh. Mark 10:9 says, therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. If we're in this to the end, let's keep the end in mind. Okay? Because we know all the good sayings, you know, the popular ones, you know. I'd rather be happy than, okay, y'all don't know that one. Right. Yeah, I'd rather be happy than right. You know this one? Happy wife, happy? Okay. That one's more real, you know. The other one is like, it's cheesy, but it's so true because at the end of the day, it's the end in mind. Do you want to be right or you want to be happy? Do you want to be right or you want a wife that is happy? You know, your life is happy in that sense. I'm going to share a bit of my BC days right now, so don't judge me too hard. You're like, wait, that wasn't your BC days already? It's like, okay. Y'all, we about to get real fast, okay? This was my dating life before I knew Christ. All right. So after the first two relationships that, you know, was long-term, really ripped my heart out and everything, no big deal. I started making some plans and some ideas, some strategies on how this dating game is gonna be. And I sat down and I mathematically came up with a plan. And I'm Asian, y'all, leave me alone. Came up with a plan called the 3-month rule. Like literally, I put it on my life. Like that is how you're gonna date from now on, the 3-month rule. I thought, you know, such a genius idea at the time, idiot. Okay. 3-month rule was, hey, within 3 months, you're gonna get to know everything that you need to know if this one's gonna be forever or not. Within 3 months, that's plenty of time to know that. It's also not long enough for anybody to really get hurt, you know? No 1 year, 2 year escapades of ripping each other apart and things like that. So once you figure it out, okay, we're good. 3 months, we knocked it out. Idiot, okay? In hindsight, I started to see more and more how horrible this idea was. Because what was happening was I was fostering and conditioning myself and my mind for a divorce mentality. What seemed really innocent for dating and really understanding, getting to know other people and things like that, I started creating in myself ways to get out of a relationship instead of resolving the issues of that. So the moment The moment you didn't fulfill my needs or made me happy, that was when I ended it. Wow. It's a divorce mentality in that way. And so when I started dating Lisa, she was fine, y'all. I'm gonna be honest with you, I met her at the club and she could dance, boy. I was like, who's your girl? Who's your girl? Woo. But man, was she trouble. So many red flags. And I did not need 3 months to figure this out. It was like 3 days, we are done. We are done. And then we got back together. I was like, what? What's going on? This is the first time I ever got back with a girl, you know? Then 3 days later again, 1 week later, 2 weeks later, we broke up again. Because it's constantly red flags all over the place. And we went at it, we argued, we did stupid stuff. To the point where anybody who knew me at the time was like, what in the world are y'all doing? Like, y'all should not be together. Trust me, God did not design this. They weren't even Christian and they knew that, you know? It was a mess. Is this week on or is this week off? Like it was such a terrible start to this relationship, and it was back and forth. We fought, and we were like, you're terrible, and she did this that was terrible. I did that was terrible. But over time, we learned what it's like. I met Jesus about 6 months after I met Lisa, and he had a plan. I did not know what that was because it was rough, y'all. But over time, we learned how to do this just a little bit better. And after 6 years, we talked about marriage, you know? After 6 years of dating, we sat down and we said, what do you think about marriage? And started talking about it. And we both agreed that if we are going to get married, it's going to be forever, you know? And so when we got married, after we got married, there were a few guys that came up, y'all dated, y'all been together for 6 years. This is just a paper now. Wow. It's 6 years. Yeah, you know everything about each other. It's just like, is there a big change? And I told them it's night and day difference. Wow. It was night and day difference because every time we came into an argument or a disagreement or a conflict, instead of thinking why I shouldn't be with this person, I started thinking, how do I make this better? How do we repair this? How do we grow together? How do we learn how to do this better? And it was constantly headed in a direction of building up our relationship instead of finding excuses to tear it down even more, excuses to leave it. Now, there are things I wish I would have done better, like earlier in our relationship and earlier in our marriage. And I'll tell you, I found an acronym, and I wouldn't have used it exactly, but the acronym was SAC. And it was like SAC, so I was like, man, y'all gonna remember that, right? In fact, it says, no SAC. So no suggestions in an argument, no advice in an argument, and no criticism in an argument. And inside you're thinking, wait a second. Then what are we gonna do? You're gonna seek understanding. You're gonna ask questions. You're gonna find out why the people were triggered. We're gonna find out what is going on with, why did it make you that upset? Because really, there's a lot of things that happens in an argument, and if we can be honest with each other, the more advice we give to each other, the more disconnected we get. And people would say, I just don't get her. I don't understand her at all. Well, why would she have? Well, ask. If you don't get it, ask. She's there. Like, you're allowed to just say, hey, I didn't get why you did that. Can you help me understand, like, how that happened there? You know, a lot of men, but it's not always the case, okay? A lot of men are not very emotional. Not emotional. And I've heard spouses complain about that. I can't get anything out of him. You know, it's like he doesn't care about anything, therefore he doesn't care about me. And the men's response, or the person who's not as emotional, will say, I can't help it. That's just who I am. I'm not very emotional. And some of you guys feel that, you know. It's like, yeah, I'm not. Can I tell you the worst thing you can do in an argument is say, that's just how I am. Okay. You knew that when you married me, actually. Well, God wouldn't use that. Now, God saved you the way you are, loved you the way you are, accepted you the way you are, just like your spouse did, but God loves you too much to keep you the way you are. He's gonna refine you. He's gonna sanctify you. He's gonna continue to make your life look more like Christ. And if it's not good enough for Christ, like, I can change for God, but not for you. When does that happen? But there's a difference between emoting and sharing feelings. Men, even though no, I don't cry because I'm a man's man. That's my toughest accent there. I mean. Even if there's a difference between emoting and sharing feelings. Emoting, this is what I found on Google. It says, while emotions are associated with bodily reactions and hormones released by the brain. So these are the things you can't control. Emotions, it's released by the brain, and then you just emote. This is when tears happen. This is when anger happens. This is when these things happen. Now, feelings are the conscious experience of emotional reactions. So feelings are saying like, hey, I did have an emotional response. I'm gonna consciously share why I did that. There's a difference. So manly men, you're allowed to talk about your feelings. Now, you don't have to go like just emote everywhere you go. But in a real conversation with your spouse, you're allowed to say, hey, when you said that, it made me feel like this. When you did that, it made me feel like this. And in the same way, ask how it made her feel. Ask. See, feelings connect. Thoughts disconnect. I was notorious for this, okay? Whenever we get in a fight and we're arguing how it started, and what I would do is I would reenact the whole thing. Remember, you came home and you said this, and you said it at this level, and then I did that, and then you did that. See, if you didn't do that. Thoughts disconnect. She don't want to hear that. Feelings connect.
That's good.
And so if you got to connect before you correct.
So good.
If you're disconnected, it doesn't matter who is right or who is wrong. You're disconnected. There's no correction. Connection. There's the famous saying that says people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. This is that connection part. And what that tells us is that it's surrounded. Connection is surrounded by love. When somebody says, I just don't feel loved in my marriage, it's because they're disconnected. I don't feel loved anymore. It's because, and there's different love languages. We're gonna talk about that, but men who doesn't get physical touch, like they're gonna feel disconnected and they feel not loved. Women who doesn't get connection intimately or through conversation and through her, they will feel disconnected. And the bottom line is love connects us. So in Colossians 3:14 it says, and over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Them meaning the patience, the humility, the compassion. Love binds it all together. The last rule is fight your fears with faith. Fight your fears with faith. If we know that our fights, our arguments are all provoking this fear, we got to fight it with faith. See, people are different. I can't say it enough. My gosh, the more people I know, the more different I think people are built, you know? We do this thing called Growth Track. Who has been to Growth Track? Let's go. Come on, somebody. We do this section called self-discovery, where we go into your disc test and your spiritual gifts test, and we really discover how God built you. And in that, you will find you think differently than them. You receive differently than them. We're so different. We've heard about the 5 love languages. We have heard that. It was only written in 1992. In that time, it has gone like legit viral without TikTok. Okay? Like, how do you go viral without TikTok these days, you know? But it did. 20 million copies sold, 50 different languages. People experience love and connection differently. We know this. Words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, receiving gifts. Those are the selfish ones. I'm not a gifts person. Okay, we know all of that, right? Because it's gone viral. But this guy, Gary Chapman, he also wrote another book. This book was called The 5 Languages of Apology. It's so good. Pastor Jared always says this. He says, how you finish something determines how you start the next thing. Now, I've always heard it the other way, how you start something determines how you're going to finish it. But he said it the other way, and it's, I kind of get it at times, but this, how you ended your last fight determines how you start this one. So the ending of the last fight, the apology, how people receive apology is highly important for them to settle these emotions. And so in order for this to happen, pride and fear play such a huge role. Like why we don't make up well. Why don't we really settle? Why don't we discuss any of this anymore? It's because if I apologize, I give them leverage. That's a big deal. If I admit I was wrong, they're gonna hold it against me like forever. If I forgive them, then they really won't know how much they hurt.
That's right. Come on now, talk about that.
So I got to hold on to this grudge and this hurt longer so you know how much you hurt me. And it's all in this fear because in the moment, you can't hurt me again because look how much you've hurt me before, and I use that against you. But don't fight with fear, do it with faith. Okay? Last week, the message Pastor talked about was we can only fix ourselves. We can only change ourselves. We can't focus on the other. And I know it's scary. I know it's scary to just start saying, okay, I'm gonna be more patient regardless how impatient they are. I'm gonna be more gentle regardless of how rough they are. I'm gonna be more humble regardless of how prideful they are. It's faith that God is working on them. Not fear that they will use it against you. If you were wrong, apologize for it. Even if you were 15% wrong. Y'all, you do all that math, all of a sudden everybody's Asian. If you were wrong, apologize for it. Be genuine and sincere. Psalm 51:17, David shows us what it looks like to apologize with sincerity. He says, my sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart you, God, will not despise. Contrite means sincere remorse. He used the word that showed how much he regretted what he did. A contrite heart. Now, some of you might be thinking, no, if God was, if he was a man of God or if she was a woman of God, then I can do this and have faith that God is working on them. But let's see what it says in 1 Peter 3:1. It says, likewise, wives, be subject to your own husband, so that even if some do not obey the word, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives. This goes both ways.
That's right. Yes, it does.
This goes both ways. Husbands, show your humility regardless if your spouse is disconnected from God right now. And your actions will be a testament for them to fall in love with Christ. Colossians 3:13 says, bear with each other. And that's the truth. Last week, John Hernandez in the 11, he said, we've endured together. And Sabrina, she brought up, she was like, oh, you endured with me, huh? I helped him out. I said, no. Through the struggles, y'all endured together, not enduring you, But really, we bear with one another. But it says, forgive one another. If any of you have grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. When we truly forgive in faith, we won't need to store up our weapons. That's when we can say, I have faith, I won't need this. My fears, I have faith. I won't need this anymore. My insecurities and shame, I just don't think I need that anymore. And I have a faith that can come to you even in the middle of our arguments, even in that I will stand, no protection, no weapons, and just have faith that God is going to work through the marriage. You know, we know that our marriages and relationships, we know that we said conflict is unavoidable. But if we focus on what matters in the present, we keep our mind on the end. And we stand in faith instead of fear. I truly, truly believe our marriages will start moving in a trajectory for the positive. But the end, when we choose forgiveness, it's a godly reaction. It's a godly response to a sincere apology. We heard in the Bible when Jesus said, your sins are forgiven, they went crazy because they know that forgiveness comes from the Father. And so when you forgive, it is also tapped into the heart of forgiveness with God. And if we believe that God's forgiveness and love can save anybody, why wouldn't it save our marriage? If we believe that no matter where you are in your life right now, whatever you have done, whatever troubles that you've had, if you believe that God can forgive you and love you, why wouldn't he save our marriages? Can we